If you're a pinball fan, I would tell you that right now is the time to rejoice. And if you're asking why is the time to rejoice right now? Well, it's simple. On this installment of Conversations, I'm sitting down for a chat with the man who changed the trajectory of American pinball altogether. This self proclaimed footnote in history had probably one of the most highly publicized demonstrations against all of City Council in New York City history. Because of this demonstration, 49 years ago, this man helped to overturn, in my opinion, one of the most frivolous laws in all the Prohibition era, therefore saving the game. So let's pearl one up, let's settle in, and let's get to know more about the journey of the sharpshooter himself, Roger Sharpe.
You know it's about that time to grab a bag of the stickiest itchy bond you can find and pearl one up.
Roger.
Howdy.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, I think. Yeah, no complaints. Just another day.
Yeah, man.
It is Good Friday. Spring is coming eventually
Yeah.
here in
Oh yeah.
Chicago.
Oh yeah. The Windy City. Is it
Yeah.
it never stops being windy there? Is that the whole catch or is it no matter where
That
you
is
go?
that's basically the entire way of life here. It's a question of whether or not there's a lake effect coming in off the lake or if it is going to the lake. So
Gotcha.
we had some gray clouds today and now it's sunny and nice, and tomorrow it'll be back to being whatever.
All
They
right.
there used to be the saying that there were only two seasons in Chicago, uh, winter and road repair.
That sounds about like Delaware. That's where I'm at. It's I don't think the road repair season ever stops around here though. No matter what.
Gotcha.
Uh Horrible, horrible. Everywhere you go, close down, detour. I mean, you know, be prepared to break signs everywhere.
I hear what you're saying.
Being a Chicago guy, man, and being in New York for so long as you were, are you doing an Italian beef over a slice of New York pizza, or what's winning the food battle to you?
Famous Ray's was great. You folded it and you ate it, but nothing compares with deep dish here in
Yeah.
Chicago.
Okay.
It's a meal unto itself. It's nice to have to eat pizza with a knife and fork. So I'm still a Midwesterner and always have been at heart. That hasn't changed. Love the experience living not only in New York, but along the East Coast for over 20 years. But it's nice being, back home after all of these precious decades,
Right.
which got me here. But food-wise, everybody has their specials. And I think that Italian beef, yeah, I prefer it without peppers, but a little dip, a little au jus on there. I'm
Yeah.
there in a heartbeat.
See, I think I'd have to take the pizza. Whether I have never had an authentic deep dish, pizza from Chicago. I've had
Oh,
New York
wow.
style, but I've never actually eaten it from there. There's a place I believe I heard of one time called I could be wrong, Giovanni Tino's or something like that around there.
There's
Something.
there's Geno's, there's
Yeah,
Uno and Due's, there is absolutely Lil Malnati's, and
I think.
Lil Malnati's you can actually order, not wanting to put a plug in, but if you really have
Yeah,
a
that
desire,
that might be where I seen it then. I'm yes.
order their pizzas and put it in your oven and see what you think. But if you're in Chicago for Pinball Expo or for anything else, I highly recommend doing a side trip and knocking one down.
I see you're still active in the tournaments.
Yeah, kind of.
I see you just got some whoppers in January.
Yeah, there are things that I'll do locally here. I'm in a league still,
Right.
one of the OGs, I guess. But there are some monthly tournaments that I'll try to see if there's a way to recapture how I used to play 50 years ago. So,
Right.
you know, we try to persevere as best as possible.
Absolutely. We have a pinball league around here at the place called the Delaware Pinball Collective. They have a Tuesday and a Thursday. My wife and I just recently signed up for the Thursdays. Tuesdays starting to get a little too crowded for us. 50 people, and it's just like, man, you're getting out of there too late. Thursdays is all classics, nothing before 1990. So, or excuse me,
Wow,
nothing after 1990. So play fast, you play your balls. It's 6 games. You're in and out in about 2 hours tops. It's a good time.
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's not too bad.
we have our first Tuesday of the month at Intrarium. People who have been out here probably are familiar with that location. And it has been running probably about 80, 90, 100 players, which is awesome.
Nice,
And then we
nice,
have the last Sunday of the month, ORD, out in a great venue. And they're maybe like 30, 40, 50, 60. So, I mean, it's a reasonable assemblage. At least those are the two that I play at. There are any number of other locations in and around the area, which also are doing leagues and tournaments. So you have the pick of the litter, I guess.
nice. The one that we have, the DPC, the Pinball Collective. It's the only one in the area, but a lot of people come over from Jersey. A lot of people come over from PA. On the regular, people come up as far away from Virginia that I know about.
Wow.
Um, I know we play. Recently had Jason Zaller on a couple episodes ago, and I don't know if he's a member, but I know he is always welcome. He comes there and plays a lot. Does a lot of warm ups. Watch him just knock down every single first place championship, or excuse me, leaderboard, well, and
Right.
championship as well. Always a good time. I find in the tri-state area where we're at, we're in a unique position because we have a great amount of like some of the top 10 players in the world from here, just
Sure.
within about 2 hours away, which is crazy if you just think about the logistics of the world, and obviously the ranking system, and then everybody that plays. I consider it to be a hotspot. It's crazy. It's a hodgepodge hotspot.
Well, and I obviously have a soft spot in my heart for the Northeast. When
Right,
Steve Epstein and myself created Papa, started
right.
the first leagues, the first tournaments. So, in many ways, it is the birthplace of it all. So it's nice to hear from you that you're getting the type of response and the type of following that obviously is growing each and every event. And whether it is, young people stepping in or women now playing or couples
Absolutely.
or whatever, I think that that's great for pinball, and it's great really for the people who are enjoying it and being able to kind of pass it along.
To the naked eye, you don't really, I guess, realize how deep it goes. The pinball community. It's a tight knit group of people. Everybody seems to know somebody that knows somebody, and it's if you're just one of them people, as was as recent as 3 years ago, with my wife just walking on the boardwalk, going, "Oh, cool, it's a pinball machine. Let me just pop a couple quarters in, see if I can beat you or you can beat me, and then we keep it pushing." But once we got in and we started seeing the the underbelly of pinball, it's crazy how far it spreads. It's a really truly unique thing, and it's fun. It's a fun community to be a part of.
I agree totally. And very friendly,
Yeah,
very engaged,
yeah,
and wanting to bring people in, encouraging them. And, for some people, it's just really the time to have fun versus others who take competition a bit more seriously. It's the nature of the beast, with
oh yeah,
any kind of endeavor that's out there as a collective, if you will, no pun intended.
right.
And I think that it's nice that you have that type of, again, that opportunity and the venues to be able to kind of experience the new games, or as you said, there is this Thursday tournament, which are games from you know, everything other than those from the 90s,
Yeah,
electromechanical classics, and to rediscover those for a lot of people, or to discover them for the first time and then
Oh
to
yeah,
play new games and just see the evolution, I think that's fantastic.
absolutely. You prefer just like a personal choice. Do you prefer classics? Pretty much, you could just get on, have fun, try to see if you can turn a machine over, or are you now getting with the trend and liking the trend of the longer gameplay, the updates, the pick six different scenarios and beat all the bosses? You know what I mean?
I obviously, or maybe admittedly, prefer the older games because number one, I'm more
Mhm.
familiar with them.
Right,
Although the rules may be deep, at least superficially, it's a question of hit the flashing light, complete the bank of targets, hit the yellow targets, then the blue targets,
right,
hit this, go for multi-ball, here's a jackpot, here are different modes, as the case might be. And for my way of thinking, um, I think it's the purity of pinball that really kind of shines through, taking nothing away from the newer games. And for me, number one, I don't have the time to really
right.
kind of delve into the rule sets, let alone the constant updates.
Absolutely.
You know, a game is never finished. Even when it is, there's something else that's looming in the background. And,
Right.
that's a positive and a negative, in all honesty. I think the longer games really have been primarily designed and developed for private use. So before it used to be, you know, game is, easy to learn and, difficult to master. That used to be the saying. And now it's not easy to learn and it's not difficult to master. It's somewhat impossible
All
to
right.
master, even the top players, because there's always going to be some other layer, some other something that is either built in already or is yet to come in version 48.7.6.3 when they go back in to change software.
Yeah.
I know with the Stern Connect interface, people are now able to compete against others, not
Right.
necessarily in the same place, but globally. That part's great. Um, it means that there is that growing community of people, which is no different, if you will, than what has emerged in the past probably 10 years in video games, where people can get on a
True.
headset and suddenly they're competing either with somebody or against somebody. So I think that, I can appreciate the new games. Uh, I think that the depth and breadth of what needs to be done is the part that I find more challenging because it's not as simple as just getting an understanding of the geometry.
Right.
If I'm going to hit the ball here, it's going to come out over here. Okay. If I'm going to hit that target is going to mean this. I think that the multiple layers of when you do things, how you do things, is there a sequence? Isn't there a sequence? Do I bank the stuff and not collect it yet? Do I do everything now? Am I maximizing my potential points
Right.
versus, oh, God, look what you left on the table. You had, 8x staring you in the face. If you would have done that, you could have really
True.
done, hundreds of millions of points. So I think that there's good and bad from my perspective personally, but I think that, and again, I'll look forward to hearing what you say and how you feel about this. I think for the younger players who have the ability to absorb it all, and the fact that they may not necessarily be singularly focused
Right.
necessarily. Um, for them, it is 3D chess, where maybe for some older players, it's checkers and it's
Right.
a finite board. And there's only so many moves that I can do to get to the point where I want to get to. So I think that, all that being said, I think that the new games provide much more depth and dimensionality for today's current players to really kind of embed themselves into the essence of a particular rule set on a given game. So, yeah, you mentioned before Jason Zoller, for him, okay, I know what I need to do 12 steps in. where somebody
Right.
else may be playing and just hoping to get to the first two or three steps. It's like a
True.
game of chess. Anybody can play the opening. The question is when you start getting into the middle game, let alone the end game, where the structure on that board is going to really determine who ultimately has the power, if you will, to win, to get checkmate. I think it's the same truly with pinball, but without belaboring it, what do you think? I mean, is there a preference for you? And how do you feel that the new games compare to the older ones?
I do prefer the classics as well. The first machine I ever turned over was Grand Prix,
Okay, great
and
game.
it took me about a year. Yeah, love that game. It took me about a year to do. After a while, I started, A, B, C, D, and I started getting the rhythm down. And I knew I knew it didn't change the entire time. You know what I mean? I knew what I had to do. I just could not achieve it. It's one of the things I like about pinball is you could tell somebody how to do it. It lays down, lower left hand corner, it tells you exactly what to do. But putting it to actual practical use is a whole nother thing. I do find that I do like more licensing on the obviously on newer machines. Because they're just you can go so in depth and especially with the way the technology is, I love that aspect of it. But so many different layers and trying to keep up with all the codes, the updates, like you said, the Stern Insider keeping up, it's too much for me in general. But I do like that it adds another layer to it. It keeps it interesting, it keeps it fresh, so it does have that replay value. It's another addition and innovation to pinball. I feel that, keeps people engaged and it will keep it going on to live forever.
Right,
But, somebody like me, like the way my brain works, I'm, A, B, C, D. um, I know what has to be done at that, step 10 era, but
right.
I'm one of those guys still trying to get to step 3 so I can try to accomplish step 4. But I will have my good shots. I'll have my good balls, my one ball to rule them all type moment.
There you go.
It's crazy. Yeah, there's just so many different layers to it. And like you said, something about the new kids because their brains they're focusing on so many different things at once that I do feel it is easier for them to come into it and, kind of organize it different in their head and, left or red plus the blue, now you got to hit the purple and then you got to go into the scoop and it's they can pretty much track it out and itemize it a lot better. I feel so younger generation definitely, but I'm going classic any day.
Okay. Well, it's just nice, look, from my perspective, just to see the overall evolution.
Absolutely.
For people unfamiliar with pinball, seeing a pinball machine, one doesn't look any different than the one next to it. And I
Right.
think whatever the, in quotes, subtle changes have been, and then there have been that are some much more overt, obviously the LCD screen and whatever else. But I think that in looking at either the mechanics of what has transpired or the depth of programming, the capabilities of being able to overlap or do things based on a time sensitive nature or doing things based on here's your progression,
Right.
the ability, again, potentially to take many, many pages from the video game world. Hi, it's going to remember what your progress was so that when you step back up, guess what? The game is ready for you at that level. It's kind of like the
Absolutely.
old days of the original Zelda. And as I travel around that world and get to my various safe points, okay, I'm set. Now I can go have dinner,
Right.
come back tomorrow or next week, and it'll remember exactly where Link is, what my power-ups still are, where I need to go.
Yep.
Uh, you know, that provided something that was remarkable. I mean,
Absolutely.
my other analogy, and again, not wanting to go too much off topic, Defender and what Eugene Jarvis accomplished back in 1980, which was, oh, you mean the world exists outside the screen? Yeah, I mean, here,
Right.
take a look. There's your radar. Go to the left, go to the right. He expanded that world, which prior to that, for the first couple of years of development with video games, everybody was limited to a single box.
Right.
Hi, a slide and shoot, whatever it was. This is your world.
True.
And I think that in some ways, again, using the analogy, the older pinball machines, that's your world. However, the target arrays are, the spinners, the multi-ball, this is your world.
That's it.
And how you approach it might need to be in a particular order, or maybe it is something where you can be more spontaneous. Versus now, we have that same world, but the expansiveness of that world
Yeah.
is the part that I think has bridged a couple of different generations when it comes to pinball and the ability to discern from a 1960s game to a 70s to an 80s, 90s, into the aughts and so on. And I think that just looking at that, stepping back when people have the opportunity to experience different eras,
Right.
I think that's wonderful because hopefully for today's player, whether they're frustrated by the simplicity of the older games, uh, one would hope that they wind up getting a better appreciation of how we got to where we are now.
Absolutely. It's almost like building a fire, getting it big. One person has it, then passes it off to the next torch, pass it off to the next torch. People keep creating, building, innovating, and now now we have a big lighter. You know what I mean? We have it in our home at the drop of a knot or a drop of a dime.
Yep,
I can definitely see that. If we didn't have innovators of pinball and people who are willing to take risks, it's almost crazy to think where it would have went if people didn't stand up to during like prohibition era. You know what I mean?
sure.
Because it's almost like a niche. It's a niche thing in some aspects. Imagine if it didn't take off the way it did, or it didn't have the fruition that it did. It would just be, I don't know. It's weird.
If you do go back to those times, the one thing that has remained constant, the physical interactivity.
True.
Forgetting about all the bells and whistles, all the other choreography. And I have games from the 1930s here, and I have the first one ever patented from 1871, Improvements in Bagatelle. And
Wow.
it is the physical interactivity. That
Wow.
is the one thing that has been the primary aspect of pinball that still makes it unique versus so many other entertainment forms.
That's pretty cool. You own that? You said?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
Improvements in
that's
Bagatelles.
that's really cool.
It's one of my collections. Yeah.
Nice. Is that your grail? Is that the grail that you own? Is that your biggest piece, you think, or your favorite, I should say, or would that be like a sharpshooter?
I think it's special. Sharpshooter, obviously, and two, and Cyclops, Barracora, Global Warfare that I'm looking at. Yeah, I mean, my own personal designs. Yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy those.
Right. If you were to rank your personal designs, would sharpshooter be number one, or what would it be?
Years ago, Josh and Zach were asked what was their favorite pinball, and they actually said Cyclops, which
Wow.
surprised me. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Sharpshooter admittedly was a labor of love.
Right.
Um, the first chance that anybody from the outside world was able to actually design a game. Now it tends to be somewhat almost everybody and anybody has
Right.
become pinball designers from the outside world and to the inside. But I think Cyclops. Um, I think Cyclops only because it was much more of an original design, if you will. I mean, I've been
Okay.
very upfront about the influence for Sharpshooter being Satin Doll with the two bottom jets and Free Fall Sky Jump with the drop target bank. But you know, the mutual effort with my dear friend Steve Epstein on Barracora, is a special place in my heart. So,
Nice.
you know, I can't necessarily make a Sophie's choice and say one over the other.
Right.
Uh, I kind of enjoy my children. It's a
Yeah, they're both your
scene,
labor of love, right?
well, it's a scene from the movie where Dennis, kind of at the very end, raises his hands in front of him, quotes the arcade, the home
Right.
collection, and said, "These are my children. Hello." And I think the same way. Uh, they're
Absolutely.
all favorites at any given point in time, depending on how I'm playing them.
Especially going through the different eras. I mean,
Now, do you have any
it's
games as well, personally?
I don't no, we don't own any personally, no. But we at the collective there's a rotating stock of 60 all in pristine working condition, so uh we're just happy enough that we, are able to have them at our disposal.
Gotcha.
But I want to get a couple. We just don't have the space for them to be honest, but
There's always space. Sorry. I at one time had five in a studio apartment in New York City.
fucking that's that now that it's dedication. That's
Well,
dedication.
it's insanity, but it's okay.
You know what though? There's worse addictions out there.
Sure.
It's you know. Yeah, man, you mentioned the movie, The Man Who Saved Pinball. Is it weird to watch a movie and watch two different people playing you at different eras of your life? Like, what's that like, man?
No, I mean, look, it admittedly was an incredible experience, very humbling. The fact that I was as deeply involved in every aspect of the film as well as casting, um, you know, to be blessed with the performance by Dennis as the old me, if you will,
Right.
and Mike just being so brilliant, uh, so intuitive, and kind of really bringing a dynamic. I think the part that surprised me the most was when the movie was first described as a dramedy, and all I could think of was, seriously, my life is a comedic enterprise? What's going? I never thought of it that way, but I think the poetic license and liberties that I was willing to allow,
Right.
as well as some of the things that were dead on. Yeah, I mean, I tend to feel that the movie is less about me than it is about Ellen being a single mother back in the 70s before it was the women's movement or Me Too or anything else, and knowing exactly what she wanted in life. Um, that's a very strong-willed person, and I have always
Absolutely.
thought that it was much more of a love story on that basis,
Right.
as well as an empowered story for women.
Right.
Uh, and that pinball is kind of like there as the thread, if you
Yeah.
will,
Okay.
but it's all of these other things that branch off from that. So in some ways, yes, it's the love of a man, a boy, for pinball, but also his love for a woman, and conversely, her love of him. So I've always kind of thought of it on that basis.
Right.
I was always concerned early on that people from the pinball community would see the movie and say, "Well, I thought it was going to be a stream. Where's the overhead camera to show the shots in the picture? What's going on? It's a
Right.
movie?" Or that people not familiar with pinball but seeing the title would think, "Oh, it's just going to be a movie about people playing pinball." Forget that. And I think that the
Right.
balance that Meredith and Austin were able to do, the Braggs,
The Brax brothers,
uh,
yeah.
not only with the script but also directing, yeah. So it is, going back to answer your question, it is somewhat strange to see two different people playing you at various points in your life. Uh, it is truthfully, I guess, an ego altering experience. It kind
I can
of
see that.
humbles you,
Right.
or at least for me, it does. And the fact that enough people, and it's won numerous awards, have really kind of taken to the film.
It
So it's kind of like nice.
it solidifies that footnote in history, right?
It does, and having been that footnote in history,
Right.
suddenly being brought to life.
In the in the movie, now this might be funny, right? But in the movie, like I can say your character, but you, that's so meta right
I
there,
know.
right? But you're the quasi you, right? Was walking past the adult bookstore when he heard the pinball going off. Raj, come on. What are we doing in the porn star, my friend? How did you
Um,
stumble upon this in there? How did you stumble
true
upon it?
story. When I moved east, I was living in New Jersey. I didn't know how to take subways and things in New York. So
Right,
I'd come in on Port Authority. I'd
right.
walk up 8th Avenue. I was working at 55th and 6th, and I'd go back the same way. And one time I just decided, let me walk down 6th Avenue, make a right on 42nd Street. And for people who know where Port Authority is, it's on 10th and 42nd. And I that is actually real. I turned a
Wow.
corner, walked, and wait a minute, where's that noise coming from? And the windows were all blacked out,
Right.
and it was like, all right, I just got to open up the door and see, and opened it up, and there were four pinball machines facing in the store and the front window. So the backs were to the front window.
Gotcha.
There were three guys in business suits and briefcases, and it was like, okay. And there was a curtain in the back or whatever else. And I've joked about it in some respect, but um, I didn't know what was going on back there.
Right, right,
And
right.
then there was a part of me, and it may sound, how naive was I? Um, Not totally, but I thought if I ever went back there and something happened to me, my parents would be horrified that their son was killed in an adult bookstore.
Right. No,
So
nobody believed it was for pinball, right?
so I wound up making that trip. And
Right.
instead of the 8th Avenue walk in the morning, got the bus, got off, walked up 42nd Street, played a game or two, made the
Nice.
left, going down to Burlington House, which is where I was working at an ad agency. Depending, sometimes I'd travel down there for lunch to play a game or two. And then most definitely I started taking a different time bus back to New Jersey where I was living so I could play a couple of more games. So that became my end all do all stop. And I found a couple of other places in the city down in the
Right.
village to play, but other than that, there was no pinball.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, I'm growing up in an era much like everybody else that's playing it today, where we don't. I mean, unless unless you are an older person, then you would remember, and especially if you're living in like a big metropolitan area, you would remember the bands. But just like a fan that's just now catching on to the movie or they don't know much about pinball, that's a shocking thing. That's a what, you know, pinball. But I guess I could see in that, in that era that people were just like, everything is must be shut down, and then underbelly of America comes. Like they're selling sex on every corner, but you can't gamble if they think that it has blinking lights and it's going to impact the youth. That's such a foreign concept
Well,
nowadays.
the strange thing with all the film festivals that Ellen and I have traveled to over these past couple of years were the number of people who were just astounded within the context of time frame. Pinball was illegal? Really?
Right.
And I think that, I've made it a point my entire life would be different. I grew up in Chicago where pinball was illegal. So I didn't know anything about the games, where I really kind of started to become much more attracted to them was in college. And then moving to New York. So I go from ignorance to plenty
Right.
to now avoid. And I was in a position to be able to say, I want my own pinball machine. Let me see if I can write an article or a feature when I was at GQ. So at least I'll
Right.
meet the right people and I can buy my own machine. And then I don't have to worry about anything. And, lo and behold, no books on the subject. And I'm off to the races. And the rest, as they say, you know, is history.
It's history. Dang
So
right.
it is strange because growing up in any other city necessarily, as you said, major metropolitan era, I probably would have encountered pinball machines. I mean, when we went downstate where my sister went to college. My sister's older than I am. There's where I played pinball. I didn't need to listen during lunch to what was happening at the sorority or anything else, just with the
Right.
age difference. I'm the little baby brother. It's like, let me take some dimes or nickel, whatever it was, and play. You guys visit, meaning my mother and my father. I'll be over there, playing pinball. And then when I would leave, okay, and never thought too much about it. So I think that that is the part that for me becomes much more real, if that makes sense at all, with the movie, with the interest, with all of the attendant attention to me over these
Right.
many decades, other than the fact that now I am old. So maybe I'm getting a little bit more love before I'm no longer around as being one of the elders. But in all honesty, it is a situation of happen chance. I mean, if
Right.
nothing else. I
Right.
mean, playing in college, and much of that is in the movie. It's true. I mean, watching somebody play and realizing, well, there's control, there's skill. I didn't know that. And that allure, the challenge, if you will, you mentioned before about turning Grand Prix.
Right. Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that with Hurdy-Gurdy, which was the first game I ever
I,
turned.
I was gonna say,
And
was that it? Is that the first
yeah,
one?
and
Nice.
I think that that was the part that really kind of drove it home was that number one, each game is unique. Back
Right.
then, it is today.
Right.
Each game has its own special nuance. Each game within a particular model run is going to be different.
Right.
None of them will play exactly the same for whatever the reason might be. And I think the net result of that is if you are able to give in to the notion of the challenge that every game provides,
Right.
the opportunity to, and I'll simplify it, make a shot that you've never made before. Oh, wow. I hit that target. I can't believe I did that. I was actually aiming for it and it happened. Getting a
Right.
score that you've never gotten before. Oh my God. I actually got 10,000 points. I've never done that. And for the person next to you, 10,000, are you kidding me? I do that with my eyes closed. I mean,
Right.
everything becomes, if you want it to be, very personalized. Forgetting about
Right.
competitive pinball, which is totally different, but it's just you and the machine. And
Sure.
as I've said years ago, I used to say it's man versus machine. I've changed that to man with machine because there's a certain synchronicity,
Yeah. And
there's a
intuitiveness
certain
to it, kind of.
osmosis between
Yeah.
you and any given game at any given point in time. There is
Yeah.
that demand to have some semblance of focus and concentration and hand and eye coordination and an understanding as to, all right, this is what I want to do next. Don't know if I can, but,
Right.
and I think that that sense of discovery, that sense of individual accomplishment is something that, again, makes pinball that much more unique, that much more
Absolutely.
captivating, and ultimately, that much more timeless.
Yeah.
Nothing else replicates that.
But it's true though. You can have a game at your house and you can see that game, what I like to call out in the wild. And you go, oh man, I'm gonna get a good play on this real quick. Even if it's up, 'cause obviously when you go out, a lot of times you'll run into a game out in the wild and the upkeep on it is not to par. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah, if something's out, lights are out, bumpers ain't working, something. But so even if you have one that's in, working condition, the upkeep on it's good, it doesn't have the same touch as the one at your house or the one you're
You
used
got
to.
it.
You're talking about that trajectory, the angles. It's all going, it's all the same, but it's not. It's
Right.
crazy. You get into that intuitiveness, that adaptiveness to that machine. If I was feeling it last night, I was feeling it on Harlem Globetrotters. It was I don't know, stepped up. I was like, bang, bang, bang. I was like, okay, let's go. 2000 a spin. Let's rip some spins, man. Some ripskis, as we call them.
Awesome. Good for
It
you.
was, yeah, it was pretty good. It was, there's nothing like a good feeling when you step up and you're like, damn, I was trying to do that and I actually achieved it this time. And then you look and everybody else is like, oh man, I got to keep up with you now. And you're like, okay, let's go. I'm
Yep.
back in the mix, you know? But at the same
Excellent.
time, it's, you get that house ball, man. It'll not only change or the mood, it'll make you really need that ball three to count.
Yep.
After the court or the council hearing, right? And everything. How did you feel the first time you lost bank shot after that? How did you feel? Were you like, what the fuck is this, man?
No, I mean, I don't even remember. I know that there was a whole slew of games that suddenly became available in Midtown and
Right,
around New York City itself. I'm sure that Bank Shot was one of them, but it didn't have the lingering, lasting impact that maybe some people might assume.
right.
To me, it was like, okay, great. And city council voted 6-0. Fantastic. Mayor Abe Beam, I've always thought appropriately in some not so vain thought process that he signed everything into law on my birthday, August 1st.
Yep.
Uh, but I think it was just the availability of games, more plenty, if you
Right.
will, versus my needing to drive down to the Jersey Shore or going outside the city to play pinball. Or I wound up getting Buckaroo,
Okay.
not Cowpoke, but so as my first game. But I think that it was if you like to read books and somebody gives you a book
Right.
and it's the first time you've ever really read a book about
Right.
sports, politics, romance, whatever it is, if that provides the impetus and the connectivity for you to want to read more books, to absorb more stories or whatever else, I think that that may, in retrospect, have been what I thought. I didn't take anything for granted. I just accepted the fact that it's like, oh, wow, I can go to the Broadway arcade and now he has X number of pinball machines. I can
Right.
go over to Hubert's Museum, X number of pinball machines. I can go here, there, and whatever. And suddenly there were many more games. And admittedly, time frame being what it is, working on my pinball book and going out to Chicago into the factories and so on, suddenly pinball became much more of an integral part to my life.
Right.
But I never I never thought of it to the extent that it would become number one, a legacy, and number two, that it would linger all these many decades later.
Some would say that thanks to Roger Sharpe, you don't have to go to like an opium den to play pinball. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll take credit and blame depending on where people think about pinball.
right? It's a special moment in time. I mean, imagine if you instead of pinball had a marble collection. The whole layout of dare I say pop culture with the movie, you're embedded in pop culture, a self-proclaimed in our historic footnote. Imagine if you had just liked marbles. You know what I mean? We would it would the whole
Oh no, the world would be different. As I said,
yeah. They're
as simple
crazy.
as growing up in Chicago with no pinball
Yeah.
and discovering it by happen chance, and more importantly, enjoying it and being challenged by it.
I have to ask. I know that when you went on behalf of the what was it, the MAA,
Yes.
and you went before council. Obviously you were there on your own recognizance. You were there, you were not being paid, just like with the book. You funded the end of it after it was all said and done, and these laws get lifted. You have these working relationships, and did you ever get any like honorarium thank you gifts? You know what I mean? Any like, hey man, or did you just get like corporate America pizza party and that's hey, that attaboy, you know?
No, I mean, I guess in some strange way, obviously it provided the opportunity for me to design my first game,
Yeah.
uh, to to look at a little scribble on a little piece of paper and describing what the circles are and the squares and whatever, and uh, somebody believing me enough to say, let's build it.
Right.
Um, the opportunity to work in the industry,
Right.
for a number of years, about 14, reviewing games for Playmeter magazine, um, having the opportunity and didn't pan out to buy Premiere, the desire to buy Williams when that was shutting down. So again, there were different doors that opened
Right.
as a result of everything, that I go back to the fact that the trajectory of my life changed. And as well, it has modified, altered, defined both of my sons
Right.
in terms of where their life path has become professionally and how intertwined pinball is with all of the sharps, if you will.
All right.
So I think that, yeah, I mean, I never thought of, I'll call them the repercussions of what the foundation was and
Right.
how it all went about. I've always believed that what's meant to be will be, and maybe my destiny was to be where I am now, sitting with you and talking about pinball and the world around us. And yeah, I have a deep appreciation, and I'm humbled by it all. It's amazing if I were to sit back and really think of the influence and the impact that I've had. I've said it on a number of occasions that I may have saved pinball, but Gary Stern kept it alive.
Right.
And Jack Guinari gave it an infusion that brought it even more to life. So, whatever that stage was that I set for the people that followed and the
Right.
ones before me who were doing all of the incredible innovations, the Harry Williams of the world and others of that
Yeah.
note. Um, yeah,
The Thomas Edison
you
of
you
pinball, right?
you wind up standing on the shoulders of the pioneers.
Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of pinball?
God, that's a great question. Harry, obviously. Um, I mean, I think it becomes easy when you start looking at, in quotes, the founding fathers. So whether it was Ray Maloney, whether it's David Gottlieb, Sam Ginsberg, and others, Sam
Right.
Stern, if you look at different generations, Mike Stroll and his influence at Williams, um, you know, it's a pretty lofty mount, if you will, of
Absolutely.
various folks that would be the hierarchy of greatness,
Okay.
not even touching upon all the brilliant designers over the years and what their impact was.
Right.
In some ways, I'll call it difficult as well as easy to look at the transformation from 1926, if you will. We won't even go back to 1871, but around
Right.
the mid to late 20s until you get to World War II. And what you see
Okay.
is those advancements. Battery now to electricity. I mean, it's a bumper, it's a flipper. I mean, all of these things that you wind up looking at that you take for granted started somewhere because
Absolutely.
all it was were just some pegs and pieces of wood.
Right.
So I think that Mount Rushmore would be expansive. I won't limit myself to
Okay.
any numbers. I will put it back to you and maybe your viewers, listeners, who would be their Mount Rushmore. So who would be
Oof.
your Mount Rushmore?
It would have to be, I believe, Harry Williams. I would have to have you on there because you obviously changed the direction of where it went. Obviously, the person who first invented pinball.
Montague Redgrave, 1871.
There it is. That's and there that the pinball machine that you own. The definitely would have it there. And I don't know. The fourth, I believe, I it would have to be open because it's not to say that it's interchangeable, but that's a hard lock on a fourth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it goes era by era,
Yeah,
to your point,
yeah,
and it makes it much more daunting because of number one, familiarity.
right.
You know, who were the people who did what, who was responsible, what they did, was that lasting, was it good, not? I mean, there's only been so many, forgetting about the last 10 years because of home brews, there's only been so many people who have ever designed games.
True.
I mean, forget about the turn of the century, if you will. Let's go
Right.
back to 1999 and prior to. It wasn't necessarily an open world. A couple of people here, a couple of people there that were creating magic. And,
Sure.
prior to that, the same number of people, David Rockola and others back in the 30s, who were doing things mechanically that were just incredible and insane. So, again,
Pioneers.
I think your Mount Rushmore becomes much more of a mountain range.
Yeah. All the way chiseled from the peaks to the valleys, man. You know, you're gonna have somebody in between somewhere, some nook and cranny. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be more like a wall. You know, now I'm starting to think more of like the wall of faces from like the Game of Thrones.
There you go.
Little fun fact, man. Little they say that, what do they call that? 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, you know that game, right?
Sure.
Um little 7 degrees of Roger Sharpe, right? If I will. Um the movie used Bank Shot. The Braggs brothers actually came and got that machine from
Oh, it's
the
a
Delaware
collective.
Pinball Collective.
Oh, yeah.
I played that game last night, the one that was in the movie.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
You know, hey, listen, not to brag, but open challenge to you anytime. You know.
You're on.
Oh man, I'm gonna lose a lot of money that day. How much side money you ever made betting on pinball? You know, just maybe out having a couple drinks back in the day. Somebody goes, "Hey man, I'll take you on."
You know what? The only time that there was ever anything involved was back in the days of college where we would play for beers.
Drink a lot for free.
We did back in Madison. Yep. Yep.
What kind of beer you drink? Are you a beer drinker today? Like you enjoy a good
No,
cocktail? Like
not really.
no.
No,
One of the ongoing themes, reoccurring themes, I should say, on this podcast is marijuana. In terms of, I myself am an advocate for marijuana. I believe in the medicinal aspects of it. I believe it goes a long way. It helps. It helps me with my my things that I have going on. And you know, given the era in which you were helping change the foundation of pinball, are you a partaker of cannabis?
I'm not. And I'm a very boring old man. I don't drink. I had my time and my moments when I was in college
Right.
and overindulged. But no, I mean, I'm not ready to give in to any type of an altered state, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm too much of a control freak. So for me, my experiences were very limited because my thing would be back in those days, how am I going to feel? For how long? And if I don't like it, oh no, 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 sorry. I'm not willing or able to just kind of give up
Right.
anything.
That's
So again, not to disappoint
no,
folks out
no,
there,
no. I
but
totally understand. Pinball is not the only thing that has been advancing in the years, so I can definitely understand if your tolerance is no. Some of these things out there are just put you on a different level. It will give you that altered state pretty quick. You know.
understand. Yep,
You know. You know the 49th anniversary of the city council meeting is upon us. You know.
and it was uh, on April 2nd. Next year is the 50th.
Is it too late to give some notes about the movie?
Yeah.
I feel like we should go back, get with the Braggs brothers, and just throw that date in there. That's the one thing it's missing. If it's not too late for, just for some notes. But that April 2nd, man, that's wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
You do anything to celebrate? Do you do anything to celebrate that? I mean, I know that it's obviously it was a long time ago, but does anybody ever call and just say, "Hey, man, thanks"? you know?
No, I mean, I get that from time to time. I know that Joe Caravino out of Toronto has designated August 1st being National Pinball Day,
Yes.
and always get wonderful messages from him. He is a delight, really. Um, so, yeah, I mean, for me, any day is a good day if I'm waking up.
Right.
So, you know, it's a question of taking it a day at a time.
Right.
And, let's put it in context. Most people potentially watching or listening might not have been born 49 years ago.
Absolutely.
So, I can joke and say, yes, I was only 2 years old, but I wasn't.
right.
And now, now I'm on the downside of 100. So it's a question of just trying to view whatever my mortality is
Right.
and take it all in stride. So without getting too maudlin, uh, yeah, I mean, people will acknowledge at various points in time, which I think, again, much gratitude for that. Um, and I just kind of go about my business.
Do you know anybody that's ever been charged with a pinball crime?
I know people who've had their businesses shut down
Wow.
because
And
of
they
operating pinballs.
and they were
Uh,
probably charged
I,
with
I
something,
know
right?
that I was involved in more than just a New York case going back
Right.
in time
Right.
and subsequent in years past for little communities and other places. So, yeah, I mean,
Wow.
whether or not they were in quotes thrown in jail or just
Right. Right.
fined,
Oh yeah, but
yeah,
still a fine is a fine. I mean, for pinball, you know what I mean? That's crazy.
well, I think so. But, we live in a society that's upside down from time to time.
It's just preposterous to think about. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely worse things out there than people coming for pinball, obviously. But it's just one of those things where a person's showing their kid, and it's like you said, at another point in time, people are getting arrested for it, getting their businesses overthrown for it. Something I find to be interesting is how in the movie, I didn't know this until I had seen the movie, and they broke the legs off of and then made the billy clubs
Yep.
out of them. I find that to be interesting. In your historical like gallery you have of items, do you have one of those?
I do not.
You should get one.
I guess probably.
That would be I mean, I don't know if that's a weird thing to say. You should get the billy club that they made they made out of a pinball fucking table. But I just feel like going along with the history, man, that says a lot with the history. I think that would be a cool piece to add.
There you go. Maybe one of these days.
A lot of people say when you did sharpshooter, obviously your likeliness is on there. They say
Yes.
I've heard that Ellen's likeliness is on there.
Yes.
Who's
Her
the other lady?
Ellen's hand is further up my leg.
Okay.
She's on my right leg. And Lee Goldboss, who is the president of Game Plan, his
Okay.
wife Marilyn is the woman on my other leg.
Nice. Okay.
And there are little Easter eggs. Lee is actually holding the rifle in the backlash. Next to him is one of his daughters and their cat. And his partner, Mike Abrams, is sitting on a barrel with his legs up. And then, as a shout out to my dear departed Steve Epstein, Z's Cafe is Steve, when he was growing up, was known as Zelmo just because of his height and the way he played basketball. So
Got it.
Z's Cafe was an homage to him way back when.
That's a really cool story for the backlash. A lot of Easter eggs, a lot of love, a lot of what I mean. A lot of like you said, little nods to people. That's awesome.
Well, again, a lot of controlling
Yeah,
when
yeah,
it came to
yeah.
me. So
Can't knock it, man. You're given a control for a reason, right?
there,
You earned it. You know what I mean? It's like you just came in like a tyrant. You earned it.
sure.
What was your time in GQ like?
It was great. I mean, it was a time where the magazine was changing from being predominantly a men's trade magazine
Right.
into a men's lifestyle consumer magazine, going up against the likes of Esquire and others at the time. And we kind of really set the pace for the time that I was there to really make it a much more important and vital shelter book, if you will,
Right.
giving readers tips on investing and health and well-being and travel and fashion. It was all of that under one roof. So very much cutting edge back then.
It's the handbook for the urban renaissance man, you know?
I guess.
You
Yep.
know,
It was
you know what I
what
mean? It has a little bit of everything in there. You know what I mean? You can find
well, it was what the women's magazines were,
right.
giving tips and direction and whatever else, and we tried to do the same.
It's a good magazine. It's one of the ones, you know, especially with publications getting shut down nowadays, you know, notwithstanding the test of time. I mean, they're one of the ones that are
Well, it's
classic, you
kind
know what
of
I mean?
changed a lot in the
Oh
past
yeah.
decades.
Oh yeah.
Uh, you're not really going to read too much about, how to shave or how to tie a
Right.
tie.
10 things I need to know about buying a 10-speed bike.
There you go. Touche.
Right? Oh man. Just out of curiosity, what was your favorite article you wrote besides something to do with pinball?
I think one of the favorites was how to retire as a millionaire.
Oh, let's I would love to hear that.
Back in the 70s,
Right.
um, there was something called the Keogh Plan. And Eugene Keogh, who was a New York congressman, had crafted this law where you could open up IRA accounts,
Right.
if you will, which now people kind of take for granted. And I think the part that pleased me the most, I've always been somewhat referential, going out and really kind of getting an understanding of the subject that I'm writing about, book or otherwise, and making an appointment to see Eugene Keogh, this congressman who was in the news, and thinking, God, it's going to be really difficult to see him. I know that he's busy. I know that he's getting probably swamped with, both radio and TV and newspapers and magazine people wanting to sit down and talk to him. And lo and behold, when I sat down and thanked him for seeing me, he admitted to me, which surprised me, that I was the first journalist to actually sit down and meet with him.
Oh wow.
So,
Wow.
so yeah, I think that that has a special place in my heart. Not the least of which, admittedly, was my first piece on how to buy a 10-speed bike. So the door opened off of that.
Isn't it always interesting when you think things like that and you think, oh man, this is gonna be such a hot ticket. Then you find out, you know, the person's like, oh man, you know, thanks for hitting me up. I had no idea somebody was interested in this. And you're like, because in your mind, you think the total opposite. We always, you know, almost a hypochondriac, if we will, you know.
The majority of the news and reporting was on the end product of what was going to become IRAs. I guess I took it from the standpoint of I can just report on what it is and what the impact is going to be, but I'd also like to know, how did this person come up with this? I mean, I was interested in the other part, which was a little bit different, if you will, than probably any of the other journalists
Right.
were interested in. What they wanted was the top line of, here's this program. Okay. So I think that, in this day and age now with the internet and everything else, the information is all there for you if you want to find it. So,
Absolutely.
uh, you know, the People magazine approach, which is a couple of pictures and a couple of paragraphs, suddenly you think that you know who that actor or actress or sports figure is. And, when you get a chance to really kind of delve into their lives, you wind up reading more and understanding more about who they are and what they're about. So again, it's just It's just a question of taking a different approach.
I like that. I like to do that too. A lot of people want to see like the end product. I want to see how it's made. You know, not everybody wants to see how the sausage is made, but I want to know why we're eating this kind of sausage. You know what I mean? I want to see the inner workings of it. It's just it's intriguing.
I hear you.
It's the whole opposite. You know, the whole flip side of the coin that not a lot of people think about because they always go with like the I want to say the current trend, but there's a lot of collective thought out there. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot to have that other course of thought and kind of go your own way because you find that obviously you find that 9 times out of 10 it may be a different path that sometimes may be beaten, but if you love what you do you're going to have a good time along the way because it's all about that adventure. It's all about
I hear you.
getting to that end game that everybody knows about. I wish pinball was more popular in a sense of there's a lot of licensing. There's a lot of celebrities that they use their likeliness on there, kind of like like a Mandalorian or like the Foo Fighters and things like that. And they get in with like Stern or whoever it may be, like a Jersey Jack or somebody, or and they get these licenses nowadays, but you don't see them really pushing the product. You know what I mean? And I feel if these people would push it, then it would kind of go to maybe like a bigger rank in pop culture, I would say, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think that, it's one of the mountains that pinball continues to climb.
Right.
It's a progression. The IFPA has what, 140,000 players, I think, now
It,
ranked.
yeah.
What started off with a handful.
Right.
So it just, it takes time. Eventually it'll get to where it will be,
Right.
and whatever that is and however it is. Um, I think the bigger thing is pinball's not going away. And
No,
that's the part
never.
that should be nice. Well,
Yeah.
there was a period of time where people thought that it would,
Yeah.
but I think that
Yeah.
it's so
Absolutely.
ingrained now in our culture, both domestically as well as internationally, whether you're playing actually real pinball or you're doing virtual pinball online, um, that, you know, it is there as its own unique entertainment art form. So, hopefully with all the licensing that is being done, it gets that much more exposure, becomes that much more expansive, and it takes the steps necessary to kind of dig out from the hole that it was in 20 some odd years ago.
Nowadays, there's a bit of a saying that nowadays, pinball is like a rich man's sport. Any thought to that? Just with how much how much they cost per machine. Um, Premiums. I mean, we're talking premiums, we're talking pros, we're talking limited editions, we're talking upwards like 16 grand sometimes.
Yeah, I think personally, I think it's insane, but I also know that the bill of materials is much higher now for parts. It takes a heck of a lot more in terms of manpower
Right.
to actually build the games. It's not something that's done overnight. It's a process that can take 9 months, a year and a half or longer to bring a game to life. Um, it is a conundrum because the
Yeah.
games are so expensive. You know, do I buy a car or a pinball machine? Do I put a down payment on a house or
Right.
buy a pinball machine? And I think that, you know, for some people, as the old saying was, the only difference between men and boys is the price of their toys.
It's true.
And I think that, the price of toys has gone up. And fortunately, there are ways to get games that are still exciting and fun that may cost a fraction of the newest and latest and greatest.
Yeah.
So when you have that reservoir available, it can still be affordable to get that first game, that only game, or
True.
to round out a collection rather than needing to buy the latest and greatest. Because let's
It's
face it,
true.
at the end of the day, as you even expressed, you don't have the room, even though I will argue that you probably do. Um, Space is finite. So unless you're going to be building on to a house or a garage or renting some industrial office space just to house your collection,
Right.
at some point in time, forgetting about just the economics, at some point in time, just the physical space is going to be such that you're going to start making choices
That's
because
true.
it's not necessarily for the majority of people limitless.
Right.
So I understand the problem of games costing as much as they are, but the new era is focused on collectors and enthusiasts.
True. True.
Ultimately, the machines are built for commercial use.
True.
They have a coin door. They're an investment for various business people to place them out on location for people to come in, drop their coins in, or slide their dollar bills in, whatever it is,
Right.
and they are there to actually generate revenue.
Yep. It's
So,
true.
I mean, I think that maybe it is difficult to not think myopically as to the investment when it's really up to a location owner or operator to make that decision.
Right.
If they have a barcade or any location, a bowling alley, some type of a restaurant, a truck stop, wherever you can find games, it's a question of, all right, what do I want to put in that space that will allow people to come here more often and stay longer? There was a
True.
period of time when you went to a bar, they didn't have a big screen TV. Why did
Yeah.
they put in a TV when all you had was a jukebox? Well, I need you to come on a Sunday to watch the football game. I need you to come on a Tuesday night because we're going to have this particular broadcast.
Yep.
All of those, in quotes, that we take for granted conveniences are really based on driving traffic.
Yeah. Consumerism.
So that is the nature of where pinball has always been, and to a lesser degree
True.
today, that's probably what some of the obstacles might be because of the price point,
Right.
which makes it much more difficult for commercial operators to justify spending 12 or $15,000, which gratefully they can buy a pro or
Right.
just a regular edition of something. Not saying that $6,000 or $7,000 is not
Nah.
expensive, but
Right.
it's much more affordable at the end of the day. And with the
Yep.
durability of today's games, hopefully they can stay out on location, being maintained regularly, and
Right.
still generate enough revenue to justify the expense.
It almost makes sense, if you're talking business owner, it almost makes more sense just to buy the basic pro edition. You're spending 6 grand because your bottleneck there is going to be, regardless if you're getting the limited edition, the premium, the pro, for the consumer end, you're charging the same amount per play. So if you're cutting your cost in half, we're only getting 6,000 plays to get that money back.
The limited editions are really for the enthusiast, the
Yeah,
collector.
yeah. For that, them limited 500 machines, but you do see them. Sometimes you see them out.
No, no, definitely. And those are the ones that are probably being operated by enthusiasts who open up their own special locations and like to show off what they have.
If you were going bracket style, who would you pick as I want to say as a clear cut winner right now, but who would you pick game wise? Who do you have the better experience with when you're playing right now? Would it be like a brand new Stern machine or a newer like Jersey Jack?
I think it depends on the game. I mean, every game fundamentally is going to be different, and it's a question of the creative execution.
Right.
I look at the geometry. How do the
True.
shots feel? I then look at the rules. What am I supposed to do? When am I supposed to do it? How am I supposed to do it? And then blending that together, it's a question of whether or not I feel that I have a chance with the game versus not being totally comfortable with the game
Right.
based on a number of factors. And hence, at any given point in time, it'd be like, oh, if I'm playing in a tournament, oh, I got to play that now? Okay.
Right.
Versus, oh, cool. All right, let me play that.
I get right.
So I think that for me at least, That's not necessarily a yes or no answer, so much as it is something that has a number of different facets to it.
Title to title, it'll change.
Yep.
What's a licensing that hasn't been done yet that you feel should be done?
Do you have another hour?
All right. In that case, let me ask you this. I have a theory. You know, I always see all these homebrew machines and everything, and I always feel, man, for licensing, somebody should grab Fight Club. I just feel like that would make an amazing pinball machine.
It's a very select audience. We tend to be very much male dominated. So to your
Yeah.
point, sure. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that you want to appeal to the broadest audience. So then the question becomes, whether or not something like Fight Club crosses all of the necessary lines
Right.
and appeals to younger, to somewhere in the middle, to
Right.
someone older, and not necessarily old like me, but just older, uh, and whether or not it resonates with them.
Right.
So I think, if you take a look at Pulp Fiction, that kind of accomplished and achieved because many people were familiar with it,
Right.
despite the passage of time. Plus the exceptional execution by Mark Ritchie and everyone else involved, George Petro with the programming and what have you. I mean, yeah, they turned out a remarkable game that really
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
great.
captured the essence of the license. But if
Yeah.
you were not a fan or not familiar with Pulp Fiction, it all falls by the wayside.
It's true.
So,
It's very true.
I think it becomes a crapshoot whenever you tend to focus in on a particular theme or genre in
Right.
the hope that you are actually maximizing your market penetration. And
Yeah.
in this day and age where so much is being developed specifically for a private use audience,
Right.
that makes it much more daunting to try to
True.
really kind of figure out, is this going to work here? Or are there other mitigating factors? Oh, you know what? I can't have that in my house. I have young children.
Right. Yeah, it's
Oh, I
definitely
don't want
go
that
back to potential.
because, yeah, that's not something that we're comfortable with versus, oh, yes, we want that.
Right.
And I think that those are the individual decisions that are made where, to your point, in the wild,
Right.
those individual decisions are made one play at a time.
Yeah.
Oh, I've
It's
never
true.
played that before. Let me try it. Or, oh gosh, it is that theme. I like that actor. I like that movie. I like that
Right.
music group. Let me go play that. And then the hope is that it kind of carries through so that that experience is replenishable. Let
Yeah.
me play it again.
It's true.
Versus
I
again, you're kind of really dealing in the dark on the private sale and the private demand
right.
with each and every game. So whether it's Dune or soon to be Harry Potter or uh,
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons, is there that select audience that wants that? And it's not necessarily a question of there's millions of people that play Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, how many of them actually play pinball?
Yeah. Which
And how
it's the
many of them
crossover effect.
do play pinball that, to your point, have the room to buy the game, have the money to buy the game, but oh wait, it's down at my local barcade. I'm going to go play it there because it's only $1 a play and I can have some fun with it. So I
Right.
think that, there are so many different factors that come into play from the
Very true.
beginning decision for a particular license to the execution. What's it going to cost to do this,
Yeah.
to capture the theme? How does that design work mechanically and otherwise? What is the programming depth to really kind of bring it to home? So I think that those are some of the factors that maybe a lot of people don't consider.
I don't know, I think it was 2 years ago. I was at Expo. Really wanted to play the Rob Zombie Rob Zombie's I forget exactly what the surname of it is, but it's Rob Zombie something. And I was so excited to play it. Nah, it just didn't do it for me. I didn't. I mean, after the
Okay.
second ball, I was just like, no, man. I don't know. I felt like it was like to your point, poorly executed. I feel like it was a poorly executed machine. I just I couldn't tell you exactly specifically what I didn't like. The ramps weren't high enough. The shots weren't great enough. They weren't tight enough. I felt like you could make any shot on the board. It wasn't didn't have that replay. It didn't have that oomph to it. That spark that made me go like, yeah, dude, this is I'm thinking I might want this, you know. It didn't talk to me almost,
Well,
kind of
but
like the
then
way.
again, for Spooky, it was successful. So where it wasn't your cup of tea,
There you
there were
go.
others who gravitated to it saying, oh my God, yes, this hits all the right buttons.
How did you feel about it? Did you like it?
Yeah, I thought it was a good game.
Really?
Not necessarily a great game, but a
Right,
good
right.
game.
Good game.
Enjoyable,
Right,
fun. I'm not a huge fan of Rob Zombie. So
right,
again, going back to what I said before, I played it just for the geometry and the flow and
right.
what the rules were, and it felt fine.
How many different machines do you think you've played overall your whole life?
Maybe around 1975, 76. All right, so looking at the time of Sharpshooter in development, at that point in time, I had played every game that had ever been manufactured. Um, Not
Wow.
necessarily in the 1930s, although I had played literally hundreds of 1930s games, um, thousands of games.
That's
I mean, if I look at my time with
right.
pinball, um, yeah, I mean, tens of thousands of games.
That's so wild. That's so
It's
wild.
kind of crazy.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's I would love to play that many. I would love just to say I'm one of those people just to knock it off the list. Oh, played that, played that, played that. You know, it is. You get that feeling when you go into an arcade and you see a lineup of 10 and you're like, I haven't played that one yet. Okay, so that's gonna obviously gonna be the first one I go to. At least check out the play field a little bit. See, oh, there's gonna be something I like there. Okay, let's rock. And I have to knock it off the checklist anyway. Um,
Back in 1983, I had never played Cubert's Quest.
okay,
Very limited run
okay,
game. But fortunately, I was in Japan, found it, and had a chance to play it.
nice,
I've played it since, but that was like a big thing back then to kind of, to your point, a checklist if I really had one,
right,
either for real or mentally, of wanting to play it. Because I was still out on the East Coast. It wasn't like I was involved directly in the industry and being able to go to all the test sites and play
right.
all the games as they came out or the games in development. So anyway,
Well, my friend, I appreciate your time. I'm not going to hold you up anymore, man. It is a good Friday. It has been a good Friday. This has been an excellent chat. I greatly appreciate it. Before I go, I have one question to ask you that I ask every person that comes on this program. I would love to hear
okay.
your take on this. In any way, shape, or form, how does Roger Sharpe define success?
I guess there's a couple of different ways. One obviously is financial.
Right,
One is achieving a goal that you've set out to achieve. One is all of those things combined, I think.
right,
But I think for me, success is being able, hopefully, to kind of live true to your principles and morals.
yeah,
If you can do that and remain honest and open, um, I think that's success. I think that if you're able to not look back and think that maybe you could have, should have, or would have done something different, and you're satisfied with where you are in your life, no matter how young or old, that's success. If you're in school and you pass an exam that you didn't think you had a chance or a prayer in hell, that's success.
right.
If you're able to find somebody special to share your life with, that's success. So I
That
think
truly
that
is.
from my standpoint, it is all of those things wrapped up into defining one's life.
I love that, man.
This has been great.
Glad you had a good time. I definitely had a good time. If I could give you one piece of advice, hey man, um, make some more copies of Pinball. So they're going for 1,500 right now. I'm trying to
There
pay
you go.
MSRP.
We'll see what we can do. But I look forward, hopefully our paths will cross.
Yes, sir. I hope so, man. Please come to the Delaware Pinball Collective, man. If it's ever in your travels, I know the people there. Obviously, everywhere you go, I'm sure you're greeted with open arms. But the DPC is no exception, my friend. You would
Well,
be
I will do
very
so.
welcome there.
Blessings to you and happy Easter and a happy Good Friday.
Thank you. You as well, man. Happy Easter. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.